Here is our freebie for this meal plan this week. We are using water. That is the only freebie we're going to be having. I went ahead and went to Walmart to see what I could get. I stayed within a budget of $110, which might seem a little high, but we are trying to get a bunch of restock items this week. Things like salt, pepper, yeast, vanilla flavoring, and baking powder, as well as a couple of other seasonings. As you can see, we got quite a bit for our bang for our buck, but I have noticed prices are increasing, especially on some of the ingredients that they disappeared from our store and then they reappeared about $3 more expensive, like ham for some reason. I tried to arrange my ingredients into groups of things like protein, the seasonings and fats we would be using, veggies and fruits, and carbohydrates. And that way you could kind of see that we are trying to maintain a balanced meal plan as much as possible, even though we are trying to stay on a little bit of a budget. Some of the things that you might see that are name brand, I did a Walmart pickup order and they substituted the name brand for the generic. I did keep the generic price in because that's what I paid for the items. And there are a couple of items that I already had in my cupboard that I went ahead and put into this meal plan. I added the price that I would have paid though, so that it would stay true to the amount that I would have spent. Now, a little disclaimer, my husband and I are the only people in my family at this moment, as well as 2 dogs and a cat, but they don't really eat people food. So because of that, I'm not making a full 5 actual meals when I'm making them, but I am budgeting as though I am making 5, because I want to make sure that I can help any families out there that are also trying to stay within a budget, even though it is just my husband and I do a lot of 2 people meals or 1 person meals as a result of that. I know I'm kind of talking over everything that I'm pointing to right now, so the whole list is going to be in the description box down below. That way you can just take a snapshot of it or take it with you to the grocery store and have a written out list already. Now, on day 1, I decided we were going to make some pancakes, so I used a recipe I found online. I believe it's from Martha Stewart. This is probably my favorite pancake recipe I have found so far, because it tastes like the box mix, which is funny because I guess most people want things to taste more homemade, but I really like how airy the box mix is. So this one is the closest I've found to that without just going out and buying the box mix. Now, I went ahead and served banana and strawberries with all of my breakfast, and I got enough bananas that you could do like a half a banana for each person each day, and several of the strawberries, we put 2 packs in there, so it'd be 2 pounds worth of strawberries that you would have to last for the whole week, which is enough if you are not having a ton of strawberries per meal. I know bananas are cheap and delicious, but sometimes it is fun to be able to branch out and have some of the other fruits and veggies that maybe are slightly higher priced if you don't get them in a really good sale. And I just like being able to use some of them sometimes in some of the meals. This week of meals, I also wanted to include a lot of variety, so you will see not really any direct repeat meals. Some are going to be very similar to some of the previous meals, a little bit of a rollover meal, if you will, but most of them will be fairly unique. Now we're making a simple syrup. I was surprised by how easy it is to make syrup because I, believe it or not, have not made it before. So it's just water, brown sugar, a little bit of vanilla flavoring, and a little bit of butter. I have the recipe down below. This is a trick my dad showed me growing up. He used to make pancakes for us, and he would do this little smiley face that helps you to know if your pan is hot or not, which in this case, you'll see in a second, my pan was a little too hot, so I had to adjust it, but I did adjust it, and you'll see one of the finished versions that is not burnt. The little smiley face makes a fun design if you have kids, and it also helps you to know whether or not your pan is ready, or in my case, if it was too hot, which it was. So I tried again, and this one turned out perfectly. I like this one because it gives that fun little design without it being too time intensive, And you could also do like the little Mickey Mouse ear pancakes as well. Those are really fun to have. And I never realized until I was grown up. As a kid, I loved pancakes. I never realized it was a budget-friendly meal until I was an adult. This whole thing of pancakes, it made about 6 pancakes. So you would probably want to double the batch of pancakes each time you're making it for your family of 5. Now this is what our syrup is looking like. I was curious if it was going to thicken up because it said to serve it cooled. Of course, I served it warm this time around at least, and it was still delicious, but I was curious if it was going to thicken up, and you'll see in a video a little bit later on that it did thicken up. Now these are really great because you could make them the day before and then just heat them up, and you would have your delicious breakfast ready for you in the morning without too much trouble. Now we're making something that we're going to be having for lunch, which is this pasta salad. Now this will be a lunch for 2 of our days or part of our second day. And I added in some peas as well. This is a fun trick if you're trying to get a salad to be chilled quickly. If you add in some peas and stir them around after you've got those warm noodles, it's actually going to thaw out your peas and you will have a chilled pasta salad in no time. Plus the added veggies are a nice touch. Now for our dinner on the first night, we're going to do some roasted kielbasa on the stovetop with some steamed peas and some cinnamon, brown sugar, butter, sweet potatoes, which will be delicious paired all together. First, you're going to stab your sweet potatoes and go ahead and bake them in your microwave or your oven. If you're wanting to use the oven though, be forewarned that potatoes take almost an hour to bake in the oven versus the 5 minutes it will take in a microwave. So the time difference is going to be drastically different, but if you're trying to avoid microwave rays and all that, then the oven is a good choice as well. Now I'm just taking out the kielbasa. I'm going to slice it up. This thing said it served 7. I don't think that it serves 7. I don't know. I'm sure if you cut it up really small and put it in with like a bunch of rice or something, it might. But this was the perfect amount to kind of serve my husband, I, and have a little bit left over. So I did budget for 2 of these sausages so that you would have plenty if you were a family of 5. Partway through baking, I went ahead and flipped them over after they gotten a little browned on one side, and these are already cooked, so you don't have to worry about, you know, raw meat or anything like that, but it's nice to have that little bit of caramelization on either side of the sausage. Now we're going to go ahead and get to work with our peas. We're keeping it really simple, just putting some salt and pepper on the frozen peas and a little bit of butter, and then steaming them just for about 3 or 4 minutes in the microwave. Now our sweet potatoes are ready, so I went ahead and opened them up and kind of mashed them a little bit. Then I went ahead and added a little bit of our margarine. I keep saying butter, but it's actually margarine. So our margarine on a little bit of brown sugar and a little bit of cinnamon. I like a healthy dose of cinnamon, so I added a lot, but I really enjoyed the sweet potato. It reminds me a little bit of Texas Roadhouse's potato that they would have, where they have that cinnamon butter on it. And I also added on the peas and went ahead and plated everything up, and you will see we have a delicious meal, and it's been thrown together in little to no time. Here is my husband and I's plate, and you can see we have a lot of vibrant colors on this plate. That's kind of what I was aiming for, was a lot of variety and a lot of vibrancy in the meal plan. Now we're on to day 2. This time around we're going to be making waffles, and I'm using the same batter that I made up earlier just to make waffles today. Instead of waffles, if you don't have a waffle maker, you could make pancakes. You could also top your pancakes with an egg to add a little bit of variety, or make an egg pancake sandwich where you put the egg in between 2 slices of the pancake. It's up to you, but I did like having this little waffle maker handy. It makes the perfect sandwich if you do want to put that egg in between, just because the crevices in the waffle do really well at catching all the goo from the egg, or if you add syrup to your waffles. I also like that you can pop them into a toaster oven at later dates and you have a meal that tastes like you just cooked it, even though it only took seconds. Now our lunches are going to be very simple and straightforward. Crackers and pepperoni for adult Lunchables, or ham and pepperoni with the crackers. I also have lettuce and tomato that can go on ham sandwiches. I added in some sliced cheese that you don't see pictured here, just so that you could have some grilled cheese, a little bit of a variety. We also have some chicken leg drumsticks that you could turn into chicken salad, so you could have chicken salad sandwiches. I didn't picture me making all of the lunches because I actually was eating the meals from a previous video, so I didn't want any food waste and wanted to make sure we were using up things we needed to use up in our fridge. Now here is dinner. This is going to be some stuffing, which I'm just preparing the stuffing according to the package directions. I roasted those chicken legs, as you saw, in the oven at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. Before I roasted them, I took them and just coated them with the Montreal chicken seasoning, and that worked really well to coat them, crisp up the skin. I just cooked them until they had reached an internal temperature of 175 degrees, and here's our finished plate. I also steamed that ear of corn in the microwave for about 5 minutes. I also made for breakfast the next day some zucchini muffins. These are perfect because you don't have to do anything for the breakfast in the morning. Just add some berries on the side and some bananas. The recipe is not my own, so that will be in the description box as well. Now on to dinner. We are doing some ravioli, with some parmesan, or not parmesan, some mozzarella cheese on top, and our sauce as well. This ravioli is super simple if you're needing a quick and delicious dinner. You just go ahead and plop it into some boiling water and boil it for about 5.5 minutes, and then you've got your ravioli. I drained it out of the pasta, and then the jar of pasta that I had that you can see in the background there is glass, so I could just pop that, without the lid of course, into the microwave and heat that up, and then top the ravioli with the sauce and that little bit of Parmesan cheese that you saw me grating up. As you can see, we had plenty of food. So with this pack, which was not supposed to serve 9, which I think the family pack is supposed to serve 9, and that is a different pack than the one I got because I got one that was smaller, you would definitely have plenty, not only for your 5, but you might actually have leftovers as well, which is why I included as an option for one of the lunches to have leftovers, because you're likely to have leftovers of this ravioli. I did reserve about a half a cup of the sauce because we're going to be making some homemade pizzas later on in the week, and I wanted to have that as the sauce for our pizzas. Now just top your ravioli off with a little bit of that shredded Parmesan, or that shredded mozzarella. I cannot get the cheese straight today, and then you go ahead and toast up some slices of bread as well. This will help fill everybody up, as well as help sop up some of the sauce that is on the dish. Now on to day 4, you're gonna see we have my container of syrup, and you're gonna see how much it thickened. We are making some French toast today, so we're just using an egg, a little bit of vanilla, some cinnamon, some milk, and we're going to whisk that all together and dip our bread into it, and then fry it up in that frying pan that you can see in the background there. Now, as you could see, we had a lot of bread that we bought. We could have made all of that bread, of course, but when I did the math, it actually would cost more money to make the bread than to buy these dollar loaves at this point in time. So I went ahead and just cut that corner and bought the loaves instead of making all of them. Now I've added all of my ingredients. This recipe is in the description box below, and you're just going to dip really quickly your bread into your mixture, and you should have already preheated your pan, and you'll just pop that in, and you should hear it sizzle, as that pan should be already hot. After about a minute to a minute and a half, you're going to flip it, and you can see our syrup was very thickened up in the fridge. I did put it in the fridge overnight, and it turned into the perfect consistency. We topped the French toast off with some bananas and a couple of strawberries. I planned for lunch to be grilled cheese or some ham sandwiches, and our dinner was simply last night's dinner, but with a baked potato instead of stuffing. Now, breakfast on day 5 is a little bit of a rollover meal. I just cut a circle out of French toast that we had made. I cracked an egg in the center and I made a little bit of a French toad in the hole or egg in the nest. Everybody calls it something different, but toad in the hole is what my grandma called it. Egg in the nest is what my great grandma called it. So yeah, to each its own. But then you just flip over that egg and make sure it's cooked all the way through, and you top it off with some syrup, some bananas, and strawberries. Again, this one's very similar to yesterday's breakfast, but just as delicious. Lunch was a little bit of a faux adult Lunchable with crackers, ham, cheese, pepperoni, carrot sticks, and some cucumber slices. Now we're going to make dinner, which is going to be this loaded potato. We are going to be loading it with the ham and some mozzarella, as well as serving some broccoli that we've steamed on the side. Go ahead and wash your potatoes, then stab them really well and pop them in your microwave for about 5 minutes, and you can put them in your oven again like you did with the sweet potatoes for about 45 to 55 minutes. I did have quite a few potatoes left over, so this is another easy lunch option to do some baked potatoes or fry up some potatoes to bulk up a breakfast meal as well. Potatoes are an easy way to bulk up a meal without costing a lot more money. Plus, potatoes have a lot of great nutrition in them, which sometimes if you're on a little bit of a budget, getting all the nutrition that you need into your meals can be difficult. I went in and topped our baked potatoes off. I did 2 since they were small for each person, and I topped it off with some butter, some salt and pepper, and then I laid on about 3 slices of our deli ham meat. Then I went ahead and just added a little bit of mozzarella as well that I kind of crumbled up. Here is our steamed broccoli, which we just added salt, pepper, and a little bit of margarine to, and then we put that on the side, added on the lunch meat, and added on the crumbled mozzarella, and then popped in the microwave just to melt for a few seconds, just so that the cheese was gooey and melty. This was delicious and really simple to make. If you are needing an easy weeknight meal, this is about as simple as it gets. So besides going to takeout or something like that, which will cost you way more than this meal. So if you're trying to cut some corners, but you need your budget to stay somewhat reasonable, but you're not needing like $10 to feed everybody for a week or something like that, then this is a good option. For day 6 breakfast, we are going to be making a very southern breakfast of biscuits and gravy, and it's going to be some sausage gravy. So first up, we made some biscuits. The recipe for these biscuits is in the description box. I did substitute, it calls for a little bit of sugar. I substituted the brown sugar. In fact, in any of the recipes, whenever it said sugar, I went ahead and just put brown sugar instead. It doesn't affect it too much because a lot of these recipes didn't rely on the sugar very heavily. It would call for a little bit, just add a little sweet into the recipe or to balance the flavors. Then I took the dough and went ahead and mixed it up, and then kind of formed them into the different shapes that I was wanting. And I went ahead and cooked up our sausage. I did reserve some of the sausage aside, as you can see, and made it into patties while I cooked the rest up for the gravy. As I mentioned, we are going to be making some homemade pizzas later, so if you are wanting a little bit of sausage on, this is the time to grab some cooked sausage to put on your pizzas at the later time, which will be actually tonight in this meal plan. Believe it or not, I forgot I had the sausage, and so I ended up using it with a different meal that I made at a later date. So our pizza doesn't have sausage on it, but it could. It has the possibility. Now I added in some salt, some pepper, the milk, and I made sure and gave it all a good stir and let it cook down until it reached a good amount of thickness and all that flour had kind of cooked out. And I went ahead and topped my opened biscuits out on a plate and topped it with that gravy, which was really delicious. I never realized how easy it was to make biscuits and gravy until recently, and I will not turn back anymore. I won't ever be using a little packet again because it is so easy to make this and delicious. Lunch was leftover ravioli, so we are working on our dinner, which I went ahead and included the dough recipe I used in the description box. It's my own recipe, and I have used it in several other videos, which I will link one of the videos where I actually sit and make up the dough so that you can see the process if you are needing it. But since we aren't making 2 whole pizzas because we are only 2 people here, I went ahead and took pieces of the mozzarella and stuffed it in the crust to make a mozzarella stuffed crust. But if you were a family of 5 and you're trying to make 2 whole pizzas, you would probably need that mozzarella for the other pizza. Then I went and topped it with a little bit of cut up onions, peppers, and our pepperoni. And when it came out of the oven and it cooked at 400 for about 25 minutes, it was golden brown, bubbly, and really delicious. This reheated quite well as well, so I would say this is a decent meal to have for leftovers. As you can see, it made quite a bit, and these are pretty large slices of pizza. Now we're on to day 7. If this was Sunday, this is an easy meal to grab and go to church with. So it's sausage between the biscuits, and you just grab these, reheat them. The biscuits you can even cut in half and toast in your toaster oven so they get toasty again. So it makes a really easy grab and go breakfast. Next up, we're making this Alfredo chicken pasta. We are making it in the Instant Pot, so it's about as easy as it can get. And it's going to serve 10. So my thought was, at the end of a long week, maybe you have invited some friends or family over and you're wanting to feed everyone. Well, this feeds 10, not 5. So this is a large meal in case you have grandkids over or family, friends, or for us, we have game night. So I actually made up this whole pot of chicken. I started cutting the chicken off of the chicken leg bones, and then I realized that it would be easier if it was just cooked already. So I threw the ingredients into the Instant Pot and went ahead and just kind of sauteed it until the chicken legs were cooked, took them out, took the meat off the bones, and it went a lot easier that way than me trying to cut it off while it was still raw. Then I went ahead and added in some water and the elbow noodles. If it doesn't look like enough water, don't worry, I added in a little more after that image was shot. But you're going to go ahead and close up the lid, put it to sealing, and put it on for 3 minutes for the high pressure cook setting. You could do 4 if you like your noodles more well cooked. I went ahead and just made them kind of al dente because I knew as it sat upstairs on the warmer it would cook a little bit longer, and I didn't want the noodles to get soggy. I did reserve the chicken bones, as you can see, to make a stock for a later meal later on the next week. And I added in my milk after it had naturally released, and the parmesan, and then I just added a lot more seasoning. I added in that Montreal chicken spice, which I really enjoy because it already has some of the salt, it has green pepper, a bunch of other spices in it, and it just really adds a fun flavor to the pasta. And I added in that whole bag of Parmesan cheese, so this is going to be a very cheesy meal. After I added in more seasonings to my taste, I went ahead and mixed it all together. As you can see, it's creamy, cheesy, delicious, and it's going to feed a huge crowd at the end of this week. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you watching, and for your comments and suggestions. Please let me know anything that you all would like to be seeing in upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next one.